Welcome to Cannonballs, our weekly comedy plot recap of Star Wars canon for the casual fan. Our usual format is me recounting the plot of an episode, book, or comics to a few guests, and we make lots of jokes and go off on tangents. We are a little different this week because it's just myself and one of my usual co-hosts. We end up having a long discussion on the reception of the sequels in the Star Wars community, the possibility of Disney remaking the sequels, and also what it's like trying to grow a small podcast. There are timestamps in the description if you'd like to skip to the sequel discussion. And if you enjoy this, like, comment, and subscribe, and tune in next week for a few more laughs.
Pull up! All crap, pull up! It's a trap!
Yeah, I love McClunky now. McClunky's my dude.
Number one McClunky fan. Yeah, we gotta get a t-shirt.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I was thinking I was gonna bring up some more serious topics because I don't know how off track we're gonna get with the plot recap.
Okay.
We're gonna solve systemic racism tonight.
Oh, good.
No,
Let's put that on our shoulders. That's good.
we're gonna talk about sequel hate for a little bit.
Okay, which sequels?
So not the
The
prequels.
most recent trilogy?
Though the
Not
prequels
I guess you're right. Yeah,
are going
You're
to
right, never
play into
sure.
what I'm gonna argue for. But me,
Okay.
me getting more active on like social media to just try and promote this podcast, which I've basically given up on Reddit. I post it some places, but most of Reddit is like, go fuck yourself trying to share something you made that's on YouTube. And meanwhile, someone could like paint something and they're like, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's the coolest thing in the world. No, yeah, I understand. And it's because people do like baseless, or not baseless, but just like they go completely over the top with self-promotion or create like bot accounts for it or whatever. So I get why.
I probably look like a bot through our...
People are hostile towards it just because it's something that you're like, oh, fuck off, like spam bot or whatever, kind of. But if it's someone genuinely sharing content that they created, I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's as
I just feel like we're
terrible
too
as,
little of a podcast for them to be like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, exactly. If we're like the Joe Rogan podcast spamming, like, in like other subreddits, how everybody should listen to Joe Rogan podcast and go to the Joe Rogan subreddit, then I'd be like, okay, fuck off. Like,
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, actually, you know what? Let's talk a little about the self promo game, the social media, because I should get back into the TikTok because I think TikTok is at a point where its algorithm is so much more beneficial to tiny people like us.
Yeah, I think you're right that the chance of something kind of blowing up, quote unquote, especially, and by blow up I mean something that gets over probably 1,000 or even like 5,000 views. Like if you're, especially for us with double digit followers, I'm pretty sure on TikTok. I haven't checked recently,
probably.
But it's something, that when we push, when we get those numbers, like I feel like it can blow up even more. Like it's one of those things that it extrapolates and like sort of meteorically rises. If it's, we'll get one that's like suddenly, 60,000, 100,000. Like I feel like it's something that you're right. That's something it can catch wildfire so quickly.
And I think something people are struggling with who are famous on TikTok is moving them to somewhere else because there's not really a good way to monetize on TikTok. It's a good way to get a following, but the big ones I see are like, hey, head to my Instagram. Hey, head to my YouTube. They're like,
sure,
you like me here? Please like me somewhere where I can actually make money.
I've got ads on these. Yeah, you can't have like a 1-second ad over, a TikTok. But they'll try it, I'm sure. But yeah, I think I can imagine that it's not like you said, the most monetizable thing. But I agree, for us to gain traction, just the ether of, whatever popular social media stuff, and just like, I don't know, because I think Instagram is good, but it's tough also because being an audio medium first and a visual medium second, like we don't have, podcasts don't lend themselves to like Instagram, because I follow, certain podcasts on Instagram that I like a lot, just because they'll post updates about like the podcast. But it certainly doesn't lend itself to that medium. It's the same with like Snapchat or whatever. Like we couldn't have like there's no possible avenue for us in that regard. Like YouTube, I think, there's enough flexibility there, but
the YouTube algorithm nobody understands is another thing.
Oh yeah, of course. I don't think YouTube understands their algorithm. But
and YouTube, Twitch, they're at a point where they're so big that, maybe 10 years ago on YouTube, 5 years ago on Twitch, it would have been a lot easier for us to get started, because everyone's going there. They want to promote good shit. Like,
when it's inundated with stuff, both platforms have YouTube literally has like terabytes of videos like uploaded every single day. Like it's an absolutely astronomical amount of shit that they get put on. And Twitch too is becoming more like ubiquitous, and just like I see more people, especially in like popular culture, like, you have like NBA players who have, hundreds of thousands of like followers on Twitch because they go on and play, Call of Duty or whatever.
Yeah. It's like, I'm going to watch my favorite NBA player suck at Call of Duty.
Well, yeah, exactly. But it's one of those things. Yeah. Like, I see fucking actors do it, comedians do it, like musicians do it, like, and again, for a lot of those people, like, especially if they're a visual medium, or even for music, like as a, music producer, you could kind of make a name for yourself having like a cool Twitch channel where, you're playing your music or trying to promote like your stuff again. And that's why podcasts and sort of the live stream, like just chatting with the chat and whatever, kind of works. And will, hopefully work for us, because ultimately, like, it I don't know. Again, like I said, it lends itself to the medium of what we're doing. So
I've got a few experiments I'd like to try, and I pushed our Instagram a lot over the past, say, maybe 2 months or so, and it's become this weird like circle jerk of, oh, I'm Baby Yoda memes 101, and I'm Darth Sidious's dick number 2. And we're all going to circle jerk, follow for a follow, and nobody's really an active account or someone who may like come listen to the podcast.
Yeah. There are people who are trying to gain a following, but again, it's more of a numbers game. Like if you have 5,000 followers, no one's going to click in your follow list and realize that 4,000 of them are bots, 500 of them are dead accounts. Exactly. Like 100 are people that, engage, like, and it's 10% of, your followers or whatever.
So I did something with like I'm starting to make a post where it's just like a smaller like thumbnail of our YouTube video, and it's just, it'll say, oh, season 3 plot recap or whatever, and there's a little promote button, and I clicked on it. I'm like, I'm curious how much Instagram charges to promote, and it was $30 for 6 days, and you get to say, oh, here's
a week. Wow.
Yeah, I was like, that's, what, I'm gonna do it. I'm like, $30.
That's like a weird amount of time, though.
It is. 6 days is odd. I think it's just like $5 a day, maybe. But
sure.
So they let you come up with a target audience. So, I like men and women 18 to 40, and then you get to choose like things they like. And I'm
men,
like,
women, children, 18 to 40.
The women, the children, slaughter them like animals with my self-promotion.
Yeah, and your algorithmic skills.
Then it's like, what is your goal? More followers on Instagram, more likes, or more visits?
Less followers. That's my goal. I have too many followers.
I will pay you money to get rid of them.
We can't find the checkbox for fewer followers.
So you more followers, more likes on that particular post, or do you want to redirect them to the website? And I was like, oh, okay.
To our Patreon.
Well, I linked our
Patreon.com/U capital EHJ, because we don't have a real URL.
I linked our YouTube, and it's tough to tell, like how Spotify and iTunes does, because the app I use tells me downloads, which I don't know if most people through Spotify are downloading and then listening or just straight streaming it or what they're doing. But,
yeah, that's not a great way. Like I download podcasts, but that's because I won't stream that. Like I'll listen to them while I'm driving, so it makes more sense for me to just download them in like 3 seconds through Wi-Fi than like stream them over. Because if I like lose service or whatever and I'm streaming it while I'm driving, then
I got in the habit for the same reason because of the train. I'm like, I'm underground.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't want to listen to anyone on the T.
Seriously, yeah. I want to not engage as best as possible.
Yeah, so I did that that promo. Let me grab my phone, actually, because the numbers are kind of funny. So basically, lead them to our website. I said, I want them to like Star Wars.
First and foremost,
number one,
interested in science fiction.
I also did like people who maybe are similar to our humor, where I don't want a 12-year-old Star Wars fan to click on this and their parents be like, Brian was talking about cock rings last week.
Yeah, and not that we always talk about cock rings, but what if they listen to the cock ring episode the first time? Then
Brian said Mia Khalifa, and I Googled it. So
I Googled Mia Khalifa college. And
now I have inappropriate racial fetishes, and it's all because of Brian's fault.
I thought she was a sportscaster.
So yeah, I chose, I did like Rooster Teeth, I did Funhouse, I did Kind of Funny. I'm like, okay, interested in those things. And we did actually gain like real people followers.
It was results and it was you only. you look and it's just Brian Carey.
It's a podcast just for me.
You're like, holy shit, dude.
Well, hey, I always said I wanted to make a podcast audience I'd like to listen to. And I think I did it.
That'd be so funny if you're like searching and it's like you have one result and you're like, oh great, one person really interested and it's you. That'd be perfect.
Yeah, because it wouldn't be me, because I'm not like, it's not my personal account. So it's just like Brian Carey.
That's so funny.
But yeah, we started to get real person followers, which maybe it's good we had all those like meme fake accounts following us, because you see a promotion and you click on it, it's like, 0 followers, I'm not going to follow this.
Like these guys have uploaded more videos than they have followers, and they've uploaded like 6 videos or whatever, or 6 photos.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna look at the numbers just because I think it's fun to look at.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, I don't think I'll do another Instagram promotion, but I learned about another promotion we might do. Let's see.
Oh, you mean the $30 for the week or whatever?
Yeah.
That's not terrible. Like, I think part of making a prominent social media account like requires an investment. Like, it genuinely, it's like starting a business, kind of, if you're gonna like do it really seriously. And I mean, now, like,
at this point, you gotta spend money.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of what I'm saying is like, unless it's a very, I don't know, it's a very sort of specific situation where you're bringing something like really, next level to the table, where you're, whether you're a talented musician or, whatever, speaker, whatever the fuck it is that's gonna like really draw people to you kind of no matter what, like you're just enigmatic in that way. Like that's one thing. But I mean, us doing a Star Wars podcast is not like, reinventing the wheel or anything.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, for us to gain legitimate traction, and not that we're not, special in our own way, wink, wink, but no, but like it's something that, we are going to need to like work to build a following through consistency, and then like advertising ourselves even shamelessly.
I'm
all of our social media accounts.
I actually, a little side note for the Pokemon stuff I'm doing. I didn't have time to do it for this, but I made like our little socials here at the bottom, like an animation, so it flashes on the screen for 5 seconds, then it disappears instead of just hanging out there. All right, so I promoted this post. We're at like, I don't know, 220 followers, all of those, circle jerk meme accounts. 77 likes. Sure.
Hey,
that's what's that? A third of our following at that point?
That's an amount.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
well,
know?
yeah, that's about a third, 70, 80. I mean, it's closer to 80, but
All right.
not closer to 80.
So people reached. So this is how many people they showed it to. 4,503 saw it. 98%
Okay.
weren't following me. 96.
So,
okay. So this is about the post in general. What's your question?
I will say, raising my hand in the back of the class. Were you the kid that would raise your hand for something and no one calling you, that you'd prop your hand up? I would sit like this. I feel like I swear to God, in like fourth grade or whatever. No, never mind.
It depends on the class, I'd say. Small classes, I had a problem of just like speaking like the guy talking in a movie. I like pissed off a geometry teacher. She was like, always something to say, Brian. I was like, yeah.
Oh, see, I was always a shit
funny.
talker. Yeah. We make jokes, the whole class. No, yeah, I'm sure no teacher appreciated
Gunning for that class clown, but Wes took it off of us.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Wes was class
never
clown,
referenced
right?
it on the podcast, but I don't think so. Do we have a class clown? I don't remember.
I have no idea where my high school yearbook is.
I'm sure whatever the vote was, the person who's voted, it was done maliciously. It was poor taste or whatever. I'm sure it's something terrible.
All right, so from this,
what the fuck were we talking about?
Yeah, so this post, so it kind of breaks it down what came from the promotion and what was just me doing the post, right?
Yeah. So I will tell you, you're talking about how I think you said in like 98 or 99% of people aren't followers that watched. I know like some YouTubers that I do watch that like make content, say for like a game that I'm playing or, you know, whatever, and I'll like watch them. They'll every now and again, I've definitely heard, you know, them reference like, hey, thanks for watching, blah, blah, blah. You know, I just want to say before we get started, like 85% of the people who watch this video aren't subscribed to the channel. It'd be really cool if you know, threw a sub on, or, but, you know, they throw like that little disclaimer out front. And I can imagine even for those channels that they're getting, you know, hundreds of thousands, millions of views, whatever it is, they're still like, hey, this is so great. I got 5 million views on my last video and I have 250,000 subscribers. Like, it'd be pretty cool if, you know, I could do way more stuff with my channel and, you know, blah, blah, blah. So like, I mean, again, even more, so I feel like that's amplified times 1,000 for like a smaller channel for sure.
And we gotta, you know, we're learning along the way, of course. We're still trying to have fun while doing this. There's actually a Twitch channel, I'm sure they do YouTube as well, that I want to check out, that another channel I've been following has been promoting, called Game Attack. And
that sounds scary. I like it.
Well, they sound kind of like funhousey. Like they called one of the hosts and he was fucking hammered at 11 because they were celebrating this promotion they're having, where they found out that, you know, even though they are low follower on Twitch, they have one of the highest sub to follow ratios. So like they've got a strong like community, and they've basically just been doing this rally to like out sub like some of the biggest people on Twitch, like Tim the Tap Man, where like they may have, you know, 100, they've probably got millions of followers, so like 4 million followers, but like 100,000 subscribers. They, you know, that's not the best ratio, but yeah, they're trying to outdo that.
Yeah. And I do think metrics like that are often just as important as like outright numbers and whatever. Like, obviously, if you're talking straight like revenue for the streamer and, you know, whatever, the guys like, you know, Tim the Tatman or fucking Nick Merckx or whatever, those guys that have like, they go on to Twitch and there's, you know, 50, 60,000 people watching them at like any time they're streaming, you know, like those guys have, you know, 10 million subs or not 10 million, so it's 10 million followers, but then they have, you know,
I feel like they're at a point
3% of that or whatever.
They can't even interact with chat anymore.
Oh, it's going so fast. Or like
people.
Well, and I know a lot of those ones will have like sub only.
Oh,
chat, where like even if you're a follower, like
that's
you
the way
can't.
To do it. I guess that's
only
how
sub. So yeah, because even if you have 60,000 people watching you, if you know 5% of that are sub to you, that's thousands of people. Like, you know, a good amount of fucking people. And at like at any time of day as well. So I can imagine that having, you know, like you said, having that community is really nice. Just because it shows you like that you're making that, that genuine connection with people that most of the people watching are really into what you're doing, which I mean, that's definitely got to feel pretty awesome.
All right. So, posted this. 30 people visited our website after they saw the post. They clicked on Cannonball's podcast, and they clicked on the YouTube
what
link.
website are you referring to? But okay, you're talking YouTube.
Pornhub.com/Cannonballs
Cannonballs pod. Yeah. Cannonballs podcast is actually taken.
The cast.
Cannonballs podcast is taken.
Yeah.
Weird usernames on Pornhub.
0% of those visits came from the promotion.
Oh, okay, so those are probably bots, right?
No. So those are people who just found it from the hashtags I put it on. It wasn't from Instagram saying, "Oh, hey, you like this thing."
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's really the big one. Oh, what would you guess the gender of people who saw this promotion was? Like, give me a percentage.
Man, I'm gonna say like 75 or 80% male.
You're good. 86 male.
Really? Okay. So I was gonna say even a little bit higher, I bet, but I don't know. I was thinking like 90s. I was 90s too high.
Yeah.
So I bet the gender ratio Instagram is probably 60-40 women over guy. I feel like, and it might even be more than that.
I think maybe not like more than that, but 60-40 like here in the US English speaking world is probably 60-40 female.
Yeah, you might be right. Yeah, that more. Yeah, I wonder internationally if it's like a big difference too. Because I don't know. I feel like guys just don't have, especially like an Instagram, like Snapchat or what. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'd be curious to see what that shit looks like. Because again, Twitch, I feel like would be heavily guys, and obviously there are plenty of women streamers and
for sure
women who watch Twitch. But again, that's got to be 70%. Dudes, like there's no way. I don't know. I can't imagine that it's it's anything much more or anything more than that.
Oh, and I forgot Sundays. I gotta post this somewhere that actually allows self promotion on Sundays. But it's a channel that
Sundays.
Yeah, there's like a Reddit thread. I don't know who goes in it, but we're gonna post there. And it's actually for the community that inspired our format. They're kind of funny. They
Funhouse.
That's Carcass Boys.
Yeah, sure.
They had this whole in review of Marvel where they, there were times their podcast went longer than the actual movie, them just joking about the whole plot of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I hate to say I do know, like, I don't want to say way more, but I definitely know more Marvel, and just because I read comic books when I was younger more than, I was like Star Wars a lot, but definitely like especially X-Men and all that bullshit is all those like even like the 90s like X-Men, Batman, like all those the 90s like Spider-Man, all the animated cartoons that they would fucking Saturday morning cartoons they had. Those are some of the best.
Like that's the theme song.
Yeah. Oh, dude, it's great.
So
those are like fucking classic comic books. But
as far as promotions, there is another one, and I don't know, what the pricing would look like for someone who's tiny like us, but Podcast Addict, the app, they have a promotion service, and what I heard from some people is the idea behind that. I
use Podcast Addict on my phone.
Yeah, I used to use it until I had to switch to Spotify for some reason. I don't exactly remember why. I had to switch to Spotify maybe for a Patreon or something at some point, but
sure.
I liked Podcast Addict a lot. The thing about promoting on Podcast Addict is, unlike Instagram, you don't have to convince someone that a podcast is something they want to listen to.
Sure. You don't have to convince them they'll like it.
They already have a podcast app. They listen to podcasts. Maybe someone on Spotify listens to like one podcast, but someone with Podcast Addict may have a few in their rotation.
They're addicted to podcasts. It's in the name.
Yeah, you got a problem.
Yeah.
And we're here to profit off
stop
of it.
Downloading podcasts. Yeah.
This is an intervention, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I may eventually promote us on that. It's just, again, one of those things. They would send you the numbers as far as tracking, but maybe we'll just come off YouTube entirely. Though I like us on YouTube.
I mean, Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think YouTube is bad, especially because you like tape the broadcast itself. Like because you stream it on Twitch, you have the VODs. Like I don't know, it makes sense as a medium, and people like I listen to music through YouTube, so I feel like it it begs the reason that like
what's cool about like the audio file is you have to go out of your way to see like followers of a podcast. I'd say like you could see a rating and how many ratings it has, but someone goes to our YouTube and they're like, ah, cool, last video had 40 views, where someone looks at our podcast and all they see is the thumbnail and the description. They're not predisposed to think it may be garbage because of the view count,
because of lack of traction. Sure.
Yeah.
And that does make a lot of sense because, first impressions, especially with that stuff, like I know I've definitely been guilty more than a couple of times. Of,
I wouldn't click on us.
Stumbling on something and I'm like, oh yeah, like it's got, single digit views or whatever. So I'm like, why am I like, but that's not inherently fair of me, but also like if I watched, I don't know, every single video that I ever clicked on, like, I don't know what I would be doing with my life. Like,
yeah, I gotcha.
People value their time. So they're like, if other people don't value this with their time, why should I? Like,
exactly. Other people decided this was not a valuable use of their time. So
yeah, their silence is deafening. Like,
I could be watching Tim the Tap Man right now instead of listening to Cannonball's podcast.
Yeah, he's playing the shit out of some Fortnite, man. I'll tell you. Never seen that before.
So that's what we think of the sequels.
Yeah, exactly. Sequels suck. No. So I'm actually curious what you have to say about the sequels, because I listened to on a podcast recently. Whatever. I'll let you get into it, and then I'll see if I can. I'll bring it in some kind of direction with the bullshit that I have to say.
So I the whole thing started because of sequel hate I see on Instagram. Everyone will get a like for sequels bad, and I don't think it's
sequels
exactly
worse than death.
kill J.J. Abrams and Ryan Johnson.
8,000 likes on Instagram comment. Like, Yeah. I'd rather be dead than watch the sequels again. 15,000 likes,
Exactly.
By your blue checked Star Wars, fucking account. Like
George Lucas.
Yeah, it's J.J. Abrams. He's like, these movies suck dick.
So I feel like it's worth the meme to pile on the movies. And I want to preface it by saying I actually didn't really like them. I think there are enjoyable parts of all three movies.
Yeah. I don't think you're wrong. I think the biggest issue with those movies for me, obviously, it's really frustrating. And I don't know, this is coming from, and this already like sets Star Wars people off, is that I'm like a diehard Star Wars fan.
Yeah, you've seen them launch night though. You're enough where.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a fan. I'm 100% a fan of them, and have been,
cinematic
countless video games. Like I've owned action figures and like multiple variations of toy lightsabers. Like I'm not invested, but they were certainly like my life wasn't going to make or break on the success or failure of the sequels. I was excited at the prospect of new Star Wars movies, as I think any Star Wars fan is, deep down, hopefully. But I think one of the biggest issues is the quality of the movies, I agree, is not great. They do have high points, but they absolutely have low points. And the problem with that is the script and like the directing and like the pacing of the movie, the editing, like, and the issue ultimately for me is that Star Wars fans more often than not lash out at like the actors involved in the movie and like other things like that, where they're like, oh, this movie sucks. John Boyega sucks. What's her face who played Rey sucks.
Or the girl who played Rose who got bullied off of Twitter.
Literally, yeah. Well, and that's I was going to say, that's what I was going to talk about. It's Kelly Marie Tran, I think is her name. I can't believe I know her name in that fucking race.
Thank you, because I was blanking.
Yeah. They get like shit on, and even like Mark Hamill's like involvement, like I feel like defends them on certain occasions, or
Mark
just
Hamill's the man. Just
and he's oh absolutely. I mean, he's not just Luke Skywalker and like a legendarily cool dude, but he's like the Joker and like all these, you know, But we don't need to fucking talk up
like
Mark Hamill.
Luke would if he existed in our world.
Exactly. Yeah, we do not need to talk up Mark Hamill on a Star Wars podcast, because anyone who's listening or cares enough to listen will know how awesome he is.
For sure.
Yeah, I really don't like that the fan base lashes out, and obviously there's been plenty of talk about, you know, the aspects that I was talking about, like the pacing, the, you know, directing, the writing, and a lot of those things, because I think that's what hurt the movies ultimately. Imagine those things with a really tight script, like not 3-hour movies, like a solid, you know, 2-hour, but like action, like you can make those movies tightly, you know, edited and well
under the same director for all three, maybe.
Sure, yeah, but like, you know, and not that Marvel and, you know, Kevin Feige and all that stuff is the best example in the world, but their great success was how cohesive and like believable that universe became after, like, they're like, trust us. See, like it was one of those things that they planned it out.
Like, here's a bunch of 6.5 so you could have a fucking 10 in 3 years.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, none of those movies, again, reinvented the wheel or did anything, but they had a cohesive idea and ran with it from A to Z. Like, they fucking stuck it out and were like, trust us, this will be worth it. Just fucking bite your tongue. Like, hey, we get Captain America, you know, the first movie, and Thor 2, totally, you know, they're not like the most exciting shit, but just trust us. Like, we'll get to the Infinity War. You'll see your Civil War. Like, you'll get your, you know, like you said, 8, 9, you know, 10 out of 10, whatever you think of those movies. But yeah, man, it really hurt Star Wars, like you said, to move directors. I mean, how can you have a cohesive vision for a movie when you have two completely different, not completely different, but two different people behind, like, you know, sort of the creative vision of the movie.
And you had it under one guy for, you know, 40 years.
Oh, yeah. Well, and look at, like, I think the Snyder cut, which is kind of like recent news, is a good idea. Well, and it's just like, it's one of those things that, like, it goes to show, and I will admit I have not watched it because it's a 4-hour, you know, movie, like revamp of a movie I already saw and was, you know, not blown away by. But I heard, you know, for the most part, especially relative to the original cut, it's absolutely an improvement. It's long, you know, it's definitely slog, whatever, just because it's kind of an unedited, like, I mean, it's 4 friggin' hours. That's a long time. It's like The Irishman. It's like people don't want to watch 4-hour movies anymore. But either way, like, it goes to show you that, I mean, that can, with, you know, the same actors, the same script, more or less, like all, you know, all of these things, like just changing the director and changing how, you know, their pacing the movie was going to be and how they wanted certain scenes to, you know, bounce off of each other affects like the quality of a movie. And then you take that and, you know, translate it to Star Wars, where mid-trilogy, when you're, again, you know, supposed to have this kind of cohesive idea, like, it falls apart. And that, I mean, that's what makes those movies not great, is they retcon like things from one movie ago, and then they're changing it. I mean, how can
one of the
watch
worst parts is there's no synergy between the 3 movies. You know, they could have happened in any order for all we know, except for, you know, the Rey and Kylo interactions, or
what the fuck is her name? God damn it.
Daisy Ridley.
Daisy Ridley. Yeah, thank you.
But yeah, the Snyder cut is kind of something that made me think about the sequels again, besides, you know, Instagram hate and just memeing on the sequels, is DC people didn't like the Whedon cut, and there was this idea
and Joss Whedon is a relatively successful director. Like, has had success with Marvel franchise, has had, you know, success outside of Marvel. Like, he has taken on, you know, smaller budget and big budget films alike. Like, he's not just Joe Schmo who they, you know, it's not the Russo, or not the fucking Russo brothers. Who are the guys that did Game of Thrones?
DB Wise
or whatever,
and whoever.
Yeah. Like, it's not like just those guys. They're like, hey, you had one successful thing, fucking come here and direct like this massive thing. Like, I mean, Joss Whedon is not,
Yeah.
he's not talented, and I mean,
not
clearly,
to sound like I'm sniffing my own farts, but cinema is an art. It'd be like, halfway finished painting, switching the painter.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, you could
totally
paint over it, I guess. You could keep some parts. It's
seriously. Yeah, do whatever the fuck you want. Joss Whedon, like, he did what is it? It's Cabin in the Woods, which is one of like my favorite. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but it's like
okay.
It's kind of a meta like satire. It's a horror movie, but like it sort of plays on like horror, like
it's
tropes
like
and stuff
other
and
things, and yeah, it's cool. It's like the whole house is like run by
like an organization of some sort, and they're like,
from Step
they're
Brothers.
like betting on what's going to happen and what monster will like kill the kids and whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it's all this, Yeah, sorry, that's a spoiler for that movie. But it's also 10 minutes into the movie.
We'll cut it out. We won't spoil Cabin in the.
I was say, how old is that? It's a decade-old movie. Sorry, but all the Joss Whedon fans listening.
We've got a huge
Buffy, like the
crossover with
Vampire
Joss
Slayer
Whedon
and all
fans.
that stuff. Like, but yeah, it just goes to show you, and Zack Snyder is not some like Martin Scorsese like respected type of like. He's not some he's definitely made some popcorn like, and I don't want to say shitty, but like some Transformers like Michael Bay level where it's just like action. Like, there's no story. Like 300, and he's got a couple. I like Watchmen that he did as well,
and there's a billion population elephant in the room that you make a lot of money if your movie can sell in China.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of like the whole bending the knee to China, just because like that leads to them, deleting John Boyega from the advertising, of the movie, even though he's one of the main characters, like, because they're racist. Like, what the fuck, like, are you kidding me?
And potentially from future character development, you can watch Force Awakens and come up with a theory that John Boyega may also be
like in the Chinese, like in the Chinese version of that movie. Like, did they bleach his skin white in the edit? Like,
No.
I don't understand. What did they do that like they hit him from the editing, but then they're like, who's this character in 50% of the movie? Like, what the fuck? Like, did they just accept it? And I don't understand. They're literally whitewashing the movie.
A stormtrooper turning and becoming a Jedi, that's interesting, even if he's not the main guy, even if we still have Rey and
I like Finn as a character.
Yeah,
like, I think he's an interesting, like, because you're looking at the political and like emotional ramifications of the stuff that like all the crazy wars, like the Clone Wars and all the stuff that they've been dealing with, the influence of the Empire on like the psyche of like, it's the people that they're involved with, whether they're working for them or whatever. Like, it's an interesting dynamic to have one of the leads of your new trilogy be this person who's been kind of scorned by their past with in a different way than just like, oh, Empire, Empire's bad or whatever. Like, and I know, is it what is it? Because it's not the fucking Empire that is it the First Order?
The First Order, yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna call it the Empire, but yeah, it's the First Order. Either way, it's the bad people. But yeah, I like that he has this like sort of runaway attitude in his in one of the things that I liked in Force Awakens was his whole like storyline of like, oh, I'm gonna ditch. Ultimately, like secretly, I'm too much of a coward, and that's why it's sort of revealed that like he kind of ran away, and not that it's revealed necessarily, but revealed to Rey and whoever that he's like this runaway. Because I think as an audience, I think we knew it.
Yeah.
But he was a stormtrooper. And I like that. Like, that's an interesting character. Like, you got me with that hook. So. I don't know. That's why I don't know. It sucks that they bash the actors and characters as much as they do. And I think there was something there. Like, Rey fizzled out because of the writing. Ultimately, like, her character's lack of backstory wasn't Daisy Ridley's fault. You know,
No, it
them
was
lack of like resolving whoever she was supposed to be.
they couldn't
you know.
they didn't know who she was.
Well, yeah.
So the Snyder cut reawakened my thoughts on the sequels, which again, because I think we're 45 minutes in. I think we're actually going to skip Clone Wars this week. I think we nailed it. Sorry, one viewer in Twitch who's here to see that.
Oh, is that me?
That would be awesome.
Here, let me pull it on. No, let me pull it up. No, it's not me.
All right.
I was watching.
So the Snyder cut. There you go. The Snyder cut is interesting to me because the cut of the movie did exist, but it started this conversation where can a fan base get rowdy enough to redo something they didn't like? Is
Sonic.
Yeah. Sonic is another great example that I forgot about. They redid Sonic.
Yeah. I'm saying it was Sanic, and they're like, that's not the name. That's not right.
That's not the Sonic I know.
Yeah, I know.
The Sonic
We
I
want a
know eats
tail
chili
movie.
cheese dogs.
Yeah. He's even faster.
Or there was like the petition to redo season 8 of Game of Thrones, which again I didn't.
Yeah, which I started.
That's right. Again, I wasn't a fan of, but
Yeah, no,
when you release something to a fan base, I'm just wondering who really is the ultimate owner of this. Like, do we as the fans own Star Wars? I mean, Disney owns the right to Star Wars, but
I know who makes the money from Star Wars. I'm not getting any residual checks or anything. I don't know if you are. I certainly
not yet.
I wish I had more of a stake.
George Lucas, I know you're a fan.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you probably have nothing to do with it anymore.
Some emotes in the chat if you're sending us checks.
Drop those emotes, George.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, like, do we want to live in a world where, you know, a majority not liking something that is released can say, this is no longer canon? Like, there was a little push. I think it was one of the episodes of Mandalorian where you see there's like a flash of how they're creating Snoke, right?
Sure.
And there was like this little push in the Star Wars Reddit, like, they're going to decanonize the sequels. They're going to redo it. And I'm like, one,
why?
They're fucking not.
Yeah, why would they spend? Yeah.
They made buckets of money. They're still going to make buckets of money.
Loved them.
They did. China loves Snoke. That's the name of the episode.
Exactly.
So
he's powerful. He doesn't take any shit.
not from no one.
Yeah. I like that he's authoritarian.
So yeah, there was this push, and it's not going to happen. I'm wondering, like, so let's reimagine this world where it's 1999. Phantom Menace comes out, and there's Twitter, there's the
15
internet,
years old,
there's Reddit,
ready for the Phantom Menace.
and Phantom Menace drops.
Yeah.
People hated that movie when it came out. People hated
the
prequels. And I thought about doing some research today. Be like, oh, can I find like an article on, I don't know, what's an old operating website, Yahoo News from 2001 about Phantom Menace. Can I go to AOL and find some Phantom Menace news to compare it? But there was, you know, we were 99. We were 6 years old.
Yeah,
we liked Phantom Menace.
Was a little high.
we liked Phantom Menace. We got a little older.
I thought Phantom Menace was fine. Yeah, I remember like the build up to it. Like, I remember my family, especially like I want to say like one of my uncles or whatever, who like was in like his 40s, who definitely like saw the original trilogy when he was younger. Like, you know, he was like a 60s baby or whatever.
I mean, like, my dad was 10 when the first one came out, and that was our thing. We went to see Star Wars. His favorite movie is Phantom Menace, which there was a wrench in the argument I'm about to make, but
he's like, this movie's terrible.
He's like Wes, he loves the politics.
Yeah, exactly. Where's the bureaucracy in this one?
But we saw it with our families. They were like, yeah, you like Star Wars. I mean, I'm sure either before or after we saw the original, we still liked it. And we got a little older, and we were told these movies suck. Like, they're bad movies. Nobody liked them. They were hated. And they've had this, like, renaissance with prequel memes where
sure,
everyone still
I
knows.
1,000% agree. I think, well, I was just going to say, I think that a big portion of that renaissance has to do with the sequels and the ultimate appreciation post, like,
what we have.
Sequels. Yeah, we're like, we have the rose tinted like glasses of being like, holy shit, dude. Phantom Menace, it was a modern classic compared to Last Jedi or whatever. Like, I think a lot of people, especially hardcore Star Wars fans, even look at those with like, they're campy and like some of the dialogue is like silly or whatever the case may be. But like, the special effects were good. God damn it, I love Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan. And Hayden Christensen was actually awesome as Anakin when we look back. Like, he did a good job of being, because I mean his career for like, he's a little like John Boyega kind of, where like his movie career didn't do shit. You would think being in one of the biggest movie franchises. I mean
that was true of the original trilogy. Fucking what's his Harrison Ford's the only one who made it out of the movie alive.
Yeah, he's the only one. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, none of them. Well, and that is true. There's some weird like Star Wars curse.
And I think another thing about like Star Wars is it always tends to be on like the cutting edge of filmmaking technology, where maybe they're even a little too soon. Like the stuff George Lucas was trying to do for the prequels. I watched the making of the first season of Mandalorian. Like, inspired this huge LED. Like, we're now past the point of green screens where we can put a realistic looking image in the background for actors to work with. There's a little bit of green and shit there, but he is such an innovator for like special effects and things like that. And some of the stuff that was shit on, we look back and we're like, it's almost like we like the bad parts now too.
Oh, that's what I'm saying is, we've grown to appreciate the campiness of it. And like, it's totally something now where they're more of like cult movies in a way, where like we look back at them in like their classic like 80s movies like Gremlins or like kind of Home Alone. And Home Alone's a little too big, but like it's those kind of like weird movies that like stick with people a certain way, or like Goonies, I guess, or whatever, where they're just like, we get like, it's kind of ridiculous and like, it wasn't the biggest like blockbuster, most popular movie like the year it came out, but something about it has stayed with like people.
There's some charm. It's quotable. There's a good bone structure there.
Hayden Christensen. Honestly, no, it's fucking it's not him, it's Natalie Portman.
So, and I did want to make a point about Phantom Menace. Again, we're in this alternate universe where Twitter and everything exists, and maybe our views are a bit more progressive. Do we want to cancel Phantom Menace for the questionable accents and stuff like that? I'm not going to cancel it now, but I'm just saying, I want to draw the comparison between prequels and sequels and the timeline they may go through.
I think any media, because like, I don't know, I was watching It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia like an hour or two ago, right? And Hulu last year took not just episodes from It's Always Sunny, their like catalog out.
Really?
Before I think Netflix did it for like 30 Rock, which is like a sitcom that Tina Fey did. I'm trying to think. There were multiple shows because in Sunny they do like these dopey episodes where they make like these shitty versions of Lethal Weapon, but Mac is in blackface in the episodes. Right. But like it was something for like the episode is meta in that like they're making fun of like how ridiculous it is. It's like the Robert Downey Jr. and Tropic Thunder kind of, where like he got away with it because the premise of the thing is making fun of how much of a jackass and like they all kind of shit on him. It was a character of a
character. It wasn't a serious blackface attempt.
It's a caricature, and that's like why they do it. And so like it was the same thing in 30 Rock, where there was an episode of John Hamm and he's in blackface, but it's 30 Rock has a bunch to do with like the history of NBC because it's 30 Rockefeller Plaza in New York. Not that you don't know that, but so there's this episode where they reference like they're again making like meta jokes shitting on like old shows that used to have white characters in blackface. So they have a white character in blackface to like make fun of how shitty it is. And then I think it was Netflix or Hulu at the time or whatever was like, oh my God, there's blackface in this. We have to remove it from our platform.
When it was a commentary on a shitty history.
Well, and it's this, it makes me default in those situations about like the revisionist history kind of aspects of going back and again, like taking things away because we don't like them is a part of that history. If it's, I don't know, I think you need to analyze it, especially like in media and art and things like that. You need to look at things contextually and understand that we shouldn't take the N-word out of Tom Sawyer because historically it's important to understand the context of why it's there. You know what I mean? Like people said that word because they were racist, and it's important to know that they were.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that adds context to the media that you're like, it's, you know, that you're consuming.
Hide that racism existed.
Yeah. And now I'm not saying that we keep up, you know, the generally like monuments or whatever in the South. Like, I'm not saying that, you know, we admire like those people because fucking tear down all that shit.
Yeah, those monuments aren't there to remind you that of the racist past, or maybe they are.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's the difference between idolizing those people with statues and monuments and understanding that, you know, keeping like, you know, keeping the Song of the South like Disney movie in the public domain so people can see, hey, Disney used to be racist as shit in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and that was not okay, but that was the norm.
Yeah.
Like, it's important to not, you know, censor those things like Disney has, because that gives context to the world as it was and why it's important that we've moved away from all that bullshit. And like, you know, so, and not that obviously racism or, you know, homophobia or whatever is the same as them retconning stuff from Star Wars, but like those same things are kind of involved in why I think a little bit.
You know, if 30 years from down the road they fix Jar Jar Binks or the Nemoidians who are a racist accent or anything, you know, it'd be like,
because they're aliens. Like, what are they like? What could they be making fun
Clone
of as
Wars,
an alien?
actually.
Like,
Clone Wars does an interesting thing. Obviously, I'm not going to do the accent of every character I'm talking about, but you go to, you know, you meet some Nemoidians and half of them talk normal, some of them have accents. You know, it almost seems like it maybe regionally on their planet there's different accents. So Filoni does a lot of, I don't even want to call it retconning, but filling in of gaps of in Clone Wars.
With small actions like that, like doing things,
oh, hey, you met two Nemoidians. One had a funny accent because George Lucas is a 70-year-old man, and it doesn't make it okay, but...
Well, and, and again, like, especially, I don't know, if it's clear, like, you know, problematic depictions of things, like, that's one thing. If they're going out of their way to emphasize, like, you know, features of a certain race or like make fun of something, like that's one thing. But if they're just like, oh, this guy has a certain type of accent, it's not like, oh my God, they're stealing, you know, the accent of this culture, and they're clearly making fun of it by him having like, you can, again, it's so much about context, and you can draw the line between those two things. I feel like if you look at something in like a measured way, because you can tell, I don't know. I feel like ultimately you can tell if something is being sort of mean-spirited then, or a fair amount of the time. And obviously there are, under recurrence of racism, all over the place, or homophobia or whatever.
And there are times where, intent isn't necessarily important or something.
Oh,
but,
sure.
Anyway, I couldn't touch, we couldn't talk about prequels without having that conversation. I don't want us to go down the two white guys talking about racism train, but
too late.
Too late.
I'm
exactly. So sequels. Can you imagine a timeline where 10, 15 years from now, someone who was 6 years old when Force Awakens came out, which was what, like
2015 or 16? Yeah, I think it was 15.
10, 15 years from now, can you imagine like a sequel memes, TikTok, blowing up and, having those movies beloved in the same way that prequels are?
I don't think so.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if I'm biased, but I think that there's not the same kind of charm to these ones. These ones are Disney knowing they have a cash cow and making a product to sell stuff and make, like, it's much more soulless to me.
Okay.
Than those originals. Like, and I think that's why, and I mean the originals isn't the prequels, but it's, and I don't know. I don't know ultimately, obviously, because who the fuck knows? People could love that shit in 15 years. I have no idea. But I think that I think that the charm of the originals, like I said, is it's the goofy dialogue, it's the campiness. It's not this like
originals meaning the prequels, right?
Yeah, I keep saying originals. I mean, because we're talking about the two.
I can loop originals in it if you want, but we'll just keep this train of thought going for you.
No, but yeah, I think it's. Hold on,
because
what the fuck I was actually saying.
I'll go off on a rant for a minute, just because I wake up in a cold sweat thinking about the sequels. Not really, but I have these thoughts. So like Mandalorian season 2, we have that scene where I'm gonna forget the lady's name, but it's the Ahsoka episode, and she's fighting the lady with the Beskar spear, and there's that wide cut of the two about to fight, and it is so like Kurosawa, so samurai film, and I'm like, in my head,
it's OG George Lucas. It's like what he was trying to
exactly what I
do
thought
with the originals.
I'm like, this is Star Wars. This is what it's supposed to be. It's a space samurai
Western
movie, space Western samurai.
Totally.
And then, I think about it, and I'm like, part of Star Wars is space samurai, but what the hell does that make the sequel or the prequels?
Yeah,
because George Lucas, the prequels, George Lucas contradicts him. Well, I don't think he contradicts himself, but he contradicts what we think of Star Wars. And maybe, it's not so openly, oh, this is space samurai, but when you look at some of the details, it very much is. And there's no sense of space samurai in prequels. Maybe towards Revenge of the Sith, we start getting back towards that, where student fighting the master, and
it's epic like battles with epic set pieces, and it's the lava, that fight is very I don't disagree. So
that leads me to the sequels where
that,
we can compare it to original trilogy and be like, oh, it's not anything George Lucas would have done. He likes Kurosawa, he likes this, and then that's okay if you're only comparing it to the original trilogy, but we've also got this set of 3 movies that everyone hated not too long ago that we got to compare it to as well. I don't know. Did you find your train of thought? Because I've lost mine.
My thoughts were just that, like, I find that what's helped the prequels like live past kind of the time that a lot of people would have. So like I feel like a fair amount of people in the late 2000s, like those movies died off. Like they were just culturally kind of ignored, and they're like, that was a mistake. It was the Avatar: Last Airbender Shyamalan film where people just collectively decided we're like, it didn't really happen. It was a exercise in futility and so on. And I think, like I said, the charm of it, and there are just aspects of it that clicked with people over time that kept it just in the cultural zeitgeist enough that ultimately, when the sequels came out, it was, oh my god, I wish that they were at least as good as the prequels, because holy shit, I am really not a fan of what they're doing. And again, I think that's going to reflect ultimately when people look back in 10, 15 years. I think they'll look even more fondly on the prequels and still
that
not
could be true. Yeah.
And still not think that the sequels are really great, because I'm telling you, it's this like perfect like sphere that was manufactured in a factory. It's got no edges. It's got no, points. It's got
that's
nothing.
a good way
Like
to put it.
it's this product that like, here you go. This is, no one's going to be upset about this. This appeals to all the right people in the right ways. Like it's inoffensive, whatever. Because I mean, Disney does that with their Marvel stuff to a lesser degree, with the humor and whatever. A lot of those like the forced romantic relationships. Like how nice would it have been if Finn and Rose were just two characters who were friends and didn't have this like it or like a forced thing.
Ray
if it was
and Kylo.
But exactly, like it's these weird things where they're like, oh my god, it's a guy and a girl. They have to get together at some point or have this, they dynamic, because that's what makes movies interesting. Like you don't have to do that for this movie. Like it's okay when it works and makes sense. Like certainly in a movie with that much stuff going on that's interesting, all these strings of stories and characters and whatever romantic subplots are not the thing that people are going out of their way and sleeping in tents at midnight to go see.
You touched on that kiss and my mind just went. I'm actually bigger on episode 9 than I think most Star Wars fans. And it was the end of the movie, and I'm like, I'm just gonna pretend that kiss between Rey and Kylo didn't happen, because it just felt so tonally off and unearned.
Well, and that's like why force, and I think that's ultimately what hurt Kelly Marie Tran was like her, because I think initially Finn and Rey were liked. Like when they came out, even before Force Awakens came out, and they're like, hey, these are our two guys. Mm-hmm. This guy, John Boyega, this girl, Daisy Ridley. These are our, Harry and Hermione or whatever people that we fucking interviewed. We looked over 1 million fucking people, and these are the two that we came out with.
John Boyega,
and I think
Star Wars
a lot of people, and I think a lot of people were excited. I mean, I remember before Force Awakens that it was like this, oh my god, like this seems pretty good. These guys are interesting. They're kind of no-name people. Like these are the people who built the franchise.
Did pretty good with Star Trek. Like Star Trek.
Yeah, they're like, hey man, totally. He made Star Trek Into Darkness, whatever. They're like, holy shit, this guy might have something going. That's a beloved sci-fi like classic that has a very picky fan base. Yeah. It's like one of those things. Like they're kind of checking all the boxes.
We thought at least it'll be fun. I went in like, this isn't gonna, be better than the original trilogy, but it'll be a fun Star Wars romp.
and I think that the forced bullshit like relationships like Finn and Rose or whatever, like I think because John Boyega among the Star Wars community, even though he's kind of pushed back at them a little bit and whatever, like he's still somewhat like I don't think he's reviled in any way or anything like that. But I think the forced like relationship turned Rose's character into just, oh, she's just the part of this subplot to have a romantic tie-in with Finn, and that's like her character.
Yeah, we need a romance in this movie. Like,
well, instead of her like being this person who's avenging the loss of like her family or doing whatever, like they take away her purpose as a character and they make her just like a fill-in or whatever. And that like bums me out, especially because I listen to a podcast called Comedy Bang Bang, and it's hosted by this guy who's married to a woman from Laos.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if you've heard of that movie that Disney made recently, but it's like Raya and the Last Dragon or something.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
their new like animated movie. So
I watched that whole Disney conference, baby.
so that movie is it's like Laotian, I believe is how you pronounce it. I'm sure I'm fucking that up. Someone correct me in the chat. But so I guess his wife was like a consult on that movie because Disney went out of their way to like focus on being accurate to like the culture of Laos and because it's however the story is interconnected, and I won't speak to that because I don't know a ton about like the story itself, but totally something that I thought was interesting. And as a result of that, on the guest of that podcast, Kelly Marie Tran was on and talked about her experience like in Star Wars. And it was an 8-month auditioning process. And she went from like LA to London to like New York. Like they flew her all over the place. And they were kind of asking her, like, when did you know like you were officially getting it? Because she was like, I had bit parts in like shows. She was like, I was not a big actress, whatever. And it's crazy because the amount of time and like effort and work that, not just she went through, but like you think about John Boyega or any of those people, Daisy Ridley, and like, it sucks that again, you're sort of bullied, like fucking what's his face who played Anakin when he was a boy.
The little kid. People were fucking
they
mean
just
as
like
shit to
absolutely
him.
Thrashed and like abused by people, and literally he wasn't like blacklisted from Hollywood, but basically like took himself like out of the public eye because he was so aggressively like
you've got
shit
this
on.
like tag, like this scarlet letter almost like.
Well, that's like, like I don't know.
You're gonna bring the baggage of people didn't like this movie along with you.
Yeah, and he. I mean, he's the most egregious to me. Even though, like we were saying, Tran had to like delete her social media profiles because she was getting such abuse from people,
which is shitty. But like
what the
Star
hell,
Wars abused a child. Star Wars fandom abused a child.
Yeah, I mean that's they literally. Yeah, and he was absolutely a child. Like it's not like, oh, he was 18 at the time, and he's a grown adult. No, he was a fucking.
We've talked about how much of a child he is in our podcast. Which
yes,
if you made it this far, it's nothing like this. But I've enjoyed this chat. But yeah.
So yeah, I hope that. I don't know. I hope that for the sake of the actors and the people that were abused, that those movies aren't just forgotten, because then was it all for naught? Like, in a certain amount of time. One thing that I am curious about though is if that movie doesn't sit well with people, say like 10, 15, 20 years from now, the way people like recycle franchises and content now, like
be redone.
Just the fact that modern media is revivalist like almost exclusively, and their ideas, they're just like, hey, we're bringing fucking this 80s show, this movie from the 70s, this 2000s, whatever. Like they're just pulling out the grab bag. Like, do you think that they would ever, maybe not remake, but like, I don't know, like splice sequels or something like in there and sort of like try to like repair it in a way, kind of like a Clone Wars thing where they're like, okay, this first movie is what happened between Force Awakens and Last Jedi, and however in some way, but they're like, we can fucking fix the weirdness of this, or whatever. Do you think that people would take to those, or do you think people would be like, fuck that, you abused us one time,
I think the most likely attempt will be Filoni comes in to fix it again, right? He's gonna
Jon Favreau.
Yeah, Jon Favreau.
The two of them, yeah.
There's gonna be, Star Wars can now be TV. It can be good. We had Mandalorian.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's a good chance the Ahsoka show does a lot of stuff, but I still think it's going to beg the question: where the hell was Ahsoka? Where the hell was Din during these movies? Like, the problem with with having these awesome characters in between is if they are so powerful, so cool.
Yeah.
What are they doing at the time of these movies? So, maybe they're going to have to kill these characters or
just tie it up with a bow tie and be like, yep, Ahsoka, fell into a black hole and that's that,
I still haven't seen Rebels, but what they did with Thrawn and Ezra is, they went off in a wormhole at a space whale.
Yeah, I was going to say, I do know, because I remember hearing when people were, sort of contemplating what ultimately would happen at the end of Mandalorian, there was the conversation of, is it Ezra who's going to take Grogu, and come floating through on a space whale, because they do with Ahsoka, reference Thrawn and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think the most likely scenario is Disney has some shows that fill in some gaps. They're probably not
They can probably just do it with TV. Like they don't need to put $200-300 million budget to make a trilogy of, whatever. They're just gonna WandaVision it and be like, hey, this is our little, this was between Age of Ultron and Infinity War, or, whatever it is, which it's not. But,
have you? This could be a quick answer. Have you watched WandaVision yet?
I did. Yeah.
All right. Cool. We may talk about that some other time. But I don't know. I feel like there is a chance of some renaissance of the sequels in 10 years, because I do think there are likable parts. And what's weird is what always comes to mind is my least favorite of the
casino scene.
The casino scene. That is cinematic beauty. No,
I know. How they gotta bring back Benicio del Toro's character.
Any scene of Rey and Kylo when they're connected and they're having those conversations, and Rey is like scared and like, oh, what the fuck are you doing to me? And Kylo's like, I'm not doing this. Why are we like? He's more trained, and he's like, this is suspicious, and
this isn't right.
That was so cool, and I think like critics for some reason love Last Jedi, and I feel like the reason fans don't like it is
Last Jedi is your least favorite of the three.
Well, it's failure to tie into the other two movies that it was supposed to, and the lack of advancement of a narrative, really. Like at the end of the movie, we pitched this whole gray side.
Movie, you could have skipped that whole movie, and I feel like nothing would have changed.
You wouldn't have missed a beat.
I mean, you obviously have Luke and whatever, but spoiler.
We you have this whole gray side conversation. We've got Del Toro's character like, oh yeah, no, I sell weapons to both sides. It's. You're both the bad guys.
That kind of extraneous bullshit, like, and as much whatever, I'm joking about the like casino stuff or like the horse racing little thing. Like, there are just some scenes in the sequels that are just bad, or just like so not necessary, or like over the top, like plot armor of certain characters of like this thing gets blown up, they fall into a crevasse and then like they're the one person that survived, the ship exploding or, the like massacre of people, and it's Finn, holding his arm and limping out of like the wreckage. You're like, oh my God, like, okay, you make more realistic, but I'm not a writer. So.
I'm fine with someone, taking a risk on Star Wars, but I feel like at the end of the day, there was no risk taken. We ended it with Kylo still being a bad guy, Rey still being a good guy, and the rebels escaped.
I stopped
we were right where we left off.
At Evil Rey. I went to the bathroom and never came back.
A cool side would have been, maybe flip flop, but maybe one joins the other in that movie.
That would have been a legitimate risk.
Yep, but so
as much as I hate to say. I don't hate to say it, I would have loved for it to have happened, but the whole joke about fucking Darth Jar Jar insert spinning.
Oh, yep. Our next famous TikTok series. We're actually going to use it next week when we talk these episodes, but I'll do 2 seconds on it for you.
Could you imagine?
Lisa called Jar Jar Binks.
There you go.
Could you imagine the reaction of the Star Wars fan base if it was revealed that like Jar Jar was secretly manipulating, like just to any degree, like that he was secretly a Sith Lord, and like the effect that would have, and again,
or even just
whatever.
If they tease like, oh, I had agents everywhere, and like Jar Jar was even just like mind controlled or just had some ulterior motives from Palpatine, people would be like,
I'm telling you, yeah, just any sort of like he was aware to a certain degree in a malicious way, or what, in some kind of like, again, the risk taking thing where like, oh, initially Jar Jar like, was apprehensive to the dark side or whatever and tried to push away, but then over time, the dark side always wins, blah blah blah, and then they cut to him and he's got all crazy like paint job like Darth Maul style, and he's green and like bright yellow or what, whatever bullshit he needs to be. He looks like Pikachu. But like, and even if that was the end of the story and he gets killed 20 minutes later in the movie, I don't even care.
Yeah.
Just the going out of your way to do something interesting and cool. And again, you can completely, bookend that storyline by just killing them, because who cares? It's your fucking movie. Do it, whatever. Do whatever you want to do. But yeah, bringing another thing that Star Wars suffers from, and again, the sequels ultimately suffer from, is the like member berries. Like, oh my God, it's a villain and it's Palpatine again. Like, it's one of those things
villains
that, oh man, you've got
killed.
so many interesting, like, why have this buildup of Snoke? And his death is one of the few things that I think is kind of an exciting, like, interesting thing that they do in the sequels.
That is interesting, killing them, but yeah,
sure. But as much as after watching it a second time, that fight scene always bothers me because it's choreographed so weird. Like, have you seen I've totally seen, like, I'm not sure if it's a YouTube video or even just like a Vine or whatever, but I've seen bits of like parts of that fight scene edited together, and it's like guys who are fighting and then they're just like not getting hit, but like flying like off screen, just to like it's something that when you analyze it closer, like you can see how kind of weirdly, like poorly choreographed it is. But that's just indicative kind of the sequels, is like,
right,
they're that flashy thing, but like when you look deeper, again, it's not a lot there. Like, it's, wide as a lake, but deep as a puddle, or whatever the fuck they say.
I love that.
I totally botched that. I'm sure. I'm confident that's not right, but
I think that botch might be a good place to end it. We're like an hour, 20 minutes in. I don't think I'm going to edit this much at all, besides figuring out where to start when you didn't realize I was recording us.
I would say the point where I'm like, hey, Brian, are we recording? And that's just the cold
open.
You'd be like, I've been recording the whole time, bitch. and just fucking, and then that's the episode. It's 10 seconds.
Yeah. No, this was fun. I'm glad we got some serious Star Wars talk. If you made it to the end, prepare for less of that. Yes, like,
yeah, oh my God, that was, this is nothing like the podcast. If you like this episode, don't subscribe.
Yeah.
Because that's not what we do. Shit.
All right, we can do a sign off like we usually do. I've got one if you don't have one.
I don't have a sign off. So
okay.
If you're
Right.
I mean, I can lob it up to you. Do you want to do a cold sign off?
No, you could set it up. Okay. I am I've decided. It's lame, but we're gonna do it.
All right, I like it. Well, and as we always say on the Cannonballs podcast,
it takes two to make a thing do right. No, you.
What? You just fucking cut out. I couldn't even hear what you were saying.